Hey everyone, it's Zara, and I'm back to film my reading journal for the month of December. So diving straight in, I have how much time I spent reading each day in the month of December. I did read every single day in December, even though there were times just that were busy with family and other obligations that I didn't read as much. Then looking at what I read this month, my favorite book was The Jungle. I read 6 books total, and that was 1,752 pages. Then looking at when I started and finished books. Then I have my bingo for the month. I did end up with 1 bingo. For my priorities, I did prep my 2026 journal. I didn't finish the Skyward series, which I'll try to finish in January of 2026. And I did read every day, so I read every single day in the month of 2020, or in the year of 2025. Then I had a mix, mostly audiobooks, but I did have some Kindle and physical books sprinkled in. A lot of things that I did have a Kindle or a physical book in there, I was reading it in combination with the audiobook or switching back and forth between the different versions, just depending on what I had available or what I had time to read. Then I pulled a quote from The Jungle. There is one kind of prison where man is behind bars and everything that he desires is outside. And there is another kind where the things are behind bars and the man is outside. I read everything except for Queen of Shadows. I'm still finishing that up here in January. I like to ideally finish everything that I started in 2025 in that same year. But unfortunately, I just was busy with family and didn't manage to finish it in December, but I was working on it in December as well. So then looking at my Goodreads tracker, I ended up with 90 books total for the year, which is pretty fantastic considering I had a baby this year. My goal was originally 100, but 90 is still fantastic. Then I read, like I said, 6 books this month. So, kind of a nice average. My lowest month was 4, and then my highest was 11. Then looking at my bookshelf tracker, I just colored in these like hot pink for the month of December. And then again, I'm at 90 books for the year, or I'm finishing off the year with 90 books. So then looking at my individual books that I read this month, the first thing I finished was Hercule Poirot's Christmas. I've been reading the Agatha Christie Hercule Poirot novels in order, and I pulled this one out of order just because obviously it was Christmas themed. I think this is like number 20 in the series, and I'm around 8, I think, in my reads and rereads. I've read some, but not all. And in this one, you have a family gathering for Christmas. There are like 4 sons and their families, and then plus a couple of other characters as well. And the patriarch of the family is very wealthy. He's not very nice. Even some of his family members, he's not very nice to, but he gets away with it because he holds the purse strings and he's, he's rich. So he gets away with a lot more than the average person would. And he's gathering his whole family together for a big announcement, and ultimately someone is murdered and Hercule Poirot is called in to help solve the case. I gave it 4 stars. I thought it was a decent Agatha Christie. Then I have Evershore, which is another short story in the Skyward series. This is in between books 2 and 3. This is like 2.3, and this one follows Jorgen, who is one of our main characters, and they're essentially helping and gathering allies for the big battle that I think is going to happen in book 4. And yeah, I mean, I don't want to say too much more since it's in the middle of a series, but it was fine. I gave it 3 stars. Wasn't my favorite out of the series, but I thought it was still, fine. Then I have my favorite book for the month, which is The Jungle. This is a reread for me. I first read this book when I was in high school, and it's really stuck with me, for years and years. And I've been wanting to reread it for a few years now, and ultimately this was the time that I finally did it. I still gave it 5 stars, which is fantastic that it still, holds up as well as I remember it being. And in The Jungle, you follow immigrants from Lithuania. It's a family who's immigrated to have a better life in the United States, and they end up in Chicago's meat packing industry. And essentially, it's just all of the kind of hardships they face, the horrors they face, that things are not easy, that things, really just are not set up for them to succeed. And, it talks a lot about, kind of the industry and how interconnected everything is. So it's, the people that make money, own essentially every aspect of the industry. They own, the shipping containers and the machinery and this and that. And so, ultimately it's all about making money, and it's all about, them, the rich, coming out ahead. But, yeah, it's just a very compelling story. There's a lot of just really heartbreaking moments. There's a lot of things that are just, you're rooting so hard for this family, and then, they just get obstacle after obstacle thrown in their path. And, there's multiple times that I cried throughout it. There's just, lots of really just horrible and sad things that happen. And Upton Sinclair wrote this as, a commentary, like a social commentary on immigrants, and, he's aiming for people's hearts and trying to get them to feel compassion for these people in these hardworking conditions. But inadvertently, he hit people's stomachs because he also included a lot of details about conditions in the meatpacking plants, and ultimately, how that related to the food. For instance, in one part, they're cleaning the floors of the meatpacking plant, and they're sweeping up the dead rats, poison and all, and it's all going into, like the meat processor that's ultimately ending up in someone's food. Or, these businesses are bringing in sick cattle that they know are sick, that they shouldn't be making into food, and they're processing them after the inspectors have gone home, that are supposed to be inspecting all of the food, but, don't do a very good job with it anyways. And, essentially they're still using every animal, every bit and piece of the animal minus the scream. And so the general public took that, what the food they were eating, and that was kind of the everlasting, I guess, issue that came from the book. And so inadvertently, the book led to the creation of a lot of laws and policies regarding food, like the Pure Food and Drug Act and the Meat Inspection Act. So I just think that's just really fascinating, the legacy the book had, but also too, the book itself, it's just, yeah, the family that they follow and the story that they tell is very good. I will say near the very end of the book, it gets a little bit slower. There's a little bit more like politics discussed versus the, working conditions and, the, I guess, kind of like character-driven plot there. And so, it got a little boring near the end, but overall I'm still giving it 5 stars, gosh, because it's, like I said, it's a book that really sticks with you. It's stuck with me for many years. Next, we have The Most Wonderful Crime of the Year. This follows Maggie, and she's an author who's down on her luck. She has recently been divorced from her husband, and she's really struggling. She's been kind of a recluse for the last year or so since her divorce, and her publisher gives her an opportunity to go meet with her biggest fan. And when she arrives, she's at the home of the greatest mystery writer of all time, basically an Agatha Christie type character who is celebrating Christmas at her mansion and has invited Maggie as well as another author, Ethan, to come. And Maggie and Ethan don't get along. Maggie doesn't like Ethan, and you know, but they're thrown together in this situation. There's a snowstorm, so of course, no one can leave, and the author ends up going missing. And so Maggie and Ethan are trying to solve the case and try to figure out what happened, if she orchestrated her disappearance or if it was in fact, someone that did something bad to her, because obviously there's other family members and characters at this manor as well. I thought it started strong. I enjoyed the beginning, but then I felt like it kind of ended meh. I thought it wasn't my favorite. It didn't really stick the landing. I also didn't really think that the romance was necessary, and it wasn't super believable either. So I gave it 3 stars. I thought this was fine. It wasn't my favorite. Next, I have P.S. I Hate You, which I really didn't enjoy this one at all. There were parts that I thought were very interesting. So you have Maddie, whose brother Josh just died. He died of cancer, and in Josh's will, he leaves a series of instructions for Maddie and his best friend Dom to go basically on these different adventures, travels to spread his ashes. And they're all places that he wanted to see before he died and didn't make it to. And so, yeah, essentially they're sent on this mission to scatter his ashes, and then he has a note for them to read at each location. I thought that part was interesting. I will say the tone felt like it was all over the place, because you have Maddie dealing with grief, but then you also have that she's kind of an annoying, kind of like a jokester a lot of the times. And then you had this romance that it just felt very jarring. Tonally, you're going to spread your brother's ashes, and then there's just like a really smutty scene, and it didn't feel like it fit in the book. I didn't think that it was necessary, and it just also didn't feel realistic. I thought the ending was kind of meh. And then also Maddie, it's a big plot point in the book that she has really bad asthma, because some of the adventures that her brother wants to send her on are hikes or other like exercise driven activities that she talks about, oh, I can't do that because of my asthma. And it got to be a little bit annoying how much her asthma was brought up. And I will just say that I think she needs a new doctor. There are other inhalers that she could probably be on, because honestly, it just didn't feel like it just felt like a plot point that really didn't need to be as big of a plot point. And it just felt annoying to me. And again, there's multiple inhalers out there. There's lots of things out there that you could try, and it just didn't feel like that should have been as big of a part of the story. And then at the end, I just thought there were things that happened that didn't make sense for the characters or how I understood the characters, that I felt like wouldn't have really gone down that way if the characters stuck to their true nature or their, you know, how they were written, essentially. So I gave this one 2 stars. Like I said, just not my favorite. I didn't enjoy it as much as I thought I would. Then the final book I read for 2025 and in the month of December was The Kill Clause. This was a really predictable short story. It's about a hit woman who doesn't make the hit that she's supposed to, and then they end up, you know, pulling out a hit on her, essentially. So predictable. It, you know, it was only 70 pages or so, and so not a very long story, but I enjoyed it for what it was. It was a quick read. I thought it was fine. 3 stars. So anyways, that was everything I read this month. I'm gonna be filming a flip through of my 2025 journal, try to just quickly go through it, and then I'll also be filming a setup, or, you know, just an empty flip through of my 2026 journal, just so that you can see what changes I made between 2025 and 2026. So I hope you will join me for those, and I hope you had a great reading year, and I look forward to 2026. Bye.